Hey gang, Dr. G here, the Imaginarium. So my previous video on self-esteem, I got such a great response to it, I thought I would do another one on that. In fact, it's going to be part of my ongoing Mental Health Mondays series, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But one of the great comments that I got from that video was um, related to the exercise that I recommend in that. So you can check that video out to get the full story, but long story short, what I'm doing is I'm having you, if you feel like you have very low self-esteem and you want to work on something to help improve it, I had I had you go ahead and write down a list of what you feel like a good person does in as specific terms as you can come up with. Now, one of my viewers, certain Earnitis 1304, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but anyway, had a great comment. He said, "Well, what happens if you have a badly taught perception of what a good person does? What if does that influence this? How can we tell if an item on my list is actually authentic to me? Is it a feeling-based thing?" That is a fantastic question. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. The short answer to that question is the way that you determine that is really, really, really hard work. Um, Now, the title of the last video was How to Improve Your Self-Esteem in Under 10 Minutes. The video is under 10 minutes, okay? This is an ongoing process. It's not going to be something that's going to be fixed overnight necessarily. But as soon as you start working on it, though, you'll start to see incremental gains in this. In any case, what you want to do is take a look at those values. So the ones that are obvious to you, the ones that resonate with you, yes, you can go with a feeling based on that. But if you're suspicious of one of the values, that's a red flag. That means you need to scrutinize it. You need to compare it. Look at value systems that you admire. Now, often we have value systems in our culture, religions, philosophies, all sorts of things, online gurus, you name it. But very commonly, they will give you vague guidelines. And there's nothing really necessarily wrong with that. You want to have if you're going to have a set of values, an important set of values. For example, on this channel, I talk about the Stoic virtues, courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. And well, what do those exactly mean in a day-to-day activity? Like exactly how do I manifest those virtues? Okay, that's a great question. So if you believe in something strongly like that, if you follow something like that, whatever it might be, then compare those values that you listed for you and what you think a good person does and contrast with those and see if it resonates with you. Now, here's the danger. Don't give yourself a pass. Take note of your feelings. And what I mean by don't give yourself a pass is sometimes you might say, well, I feel like a good person does this, but I didn't have to do that in this case because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, don't allow yourself to do that. Take a hard look and make sure you're living up to that, because if you don't, then you're essentially contradicting yourself. All right, and that's human nature. It's something we all have to deal with. It's all a part of the integrative process about individuation, as Jung put it. We're all working on this every day until the very end. And who knows, maybe we do this after death. I have no idea. But you don't want to just dismiss things on here and, oh yeah, check that, I'm good to go, and yet I still feel bad about myself. Well, then clearly you didn't do it to the degree that and the depth that you probably should have. So the question really that we're talking about here is, can I trust my feelings? And I want to let you in on a secret. Okay, there's been a line of thinking in psychology for a really long time that's influenced by dualistic thinking. So what I mean by dualistic thinking is back in the early days of science, when the scientific method was beginning to be developed, there became this paradigm wherein we tended to think of things as either objective or subjective. The entire universe was divided up into this nice, neat little thing. If subjective, it's just in your head. And if it's objective, it's out there and it's real, right? So that's another thing, is this value system is based on, if it's subjective, it's really not all that real. It's just imaginary. It's an illusion. It's just something in your head, versus objective, which is where all their action is. Now, another problem with this is that the mind and the psyche got relegated to that subjective realm, as if then it isn't real, okay? And I can detect this pretty quickly, but it takes a little while to really notice this in everyday conversations, in the unexamined presuppositions that people will import into various conversations. Long story short, what you want to be on the guard for is the idea that things that emerge within your own psyche are unreal. Or put another way, that everything that's in your mind has been put there by somebody else. Like the tendency that we see every day when you're asking somebody about why did they do this, why did they do that? Well, I learned it from here, I learned it from there, I learned it. Okay, but the thing is, though, not everything that is in our heads is learned. That's the whole idea behind the collective unconscious. It's the whole idea behind the biological theory of the psyche that I'm going on and on about all the time, that I have folks that I bring onto my channel to discuss at length. And I think it's actually a fairly toxic idea to think only in terms of whatever's in my head is stuff that was just dumped in there by somebody else, because it robs you of your own unique voice, your own unique, authentic contribution, and that includes value systems. Okay, so the value systems, we don't just learn them all. Many of them emerge spontaneously because of our human nature. And there's a whole field of study in evolutionary ethics and all this kind of thing that you can get into. And what that means is that many times we can actually trust our feelings. But you still have to be careful about that, because part of our feelings are wish fulfillments. They are ego inflations and ego fantasies and all that kind of thing. So you have to scrutinize this very closely. You have to scrutinize each value that you put on there. Some of them will be easy. A good person, pays his bills. A good person doesn't beat up children. Things like that. Those are pretty straightforward. Although the bill thing, some people might argue about that. I don't know, but some of them might not be that easy to discern. And that's where you have to really put this under the microscope. Now, one final note on this, though. It's something that I see people do sometimes where I'll ask them, like, why do you feel bad about X, Y, or Z? And they'll say, well, so-and-so told me that I'm no good because of A, B, and C. And I'm sorry, but that's just not going to cut it, okay? You don't get to foist that off on somebody else. Yes, it may be contributor to why you have felt that way up to this point. But the purpose of this exercise is to bring in to full view that which you have control of, and a value system that you don't agree with, or a value, just one or two of them maybe. You have line item veto power in this exercise. But if that's there and you don't really agree with it, guess what? You don't have to follow it. Okay, so-and-so told me 1,000,000 times when I was growing up that I was a piece of crap. Okay, yes, that leads to bad feelings. That makes you feel bad. But are you a piece of crap? Well, that's what this exercise is all about, isn't it? And if you go through it and you say, no, but wait a minute, I do all of these things that I just said were what actually define you as good. So I can't be a bad person. I'm in fact a good person. Okay. Now, you will have to do this multiple times, because those feelings that get lodged in there from such treatment don't just magically go away. Nevertheless, the more you do this, the more you bring it into your awareness, the more you call those questionable values and evaluations of your worth into question, and the more that you examine them, then the easier this will be. Okay? So now, that's what I got for you today. But if you like this, I've got more videos. Check out some of my other videos. I've got Mysteries of the Psyche that drop on Sundays. I've got Myth and Culture that I drop at random. And I have Mental Health Mondays, which I drop on Fridays. Now, why do I do that? Well, it's my channel and I get to do what I want. See you next time.